But Chair now recognizes Ms. Greene from Georgia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Americans have been enslaved in $34.8 trillion in debt. And one of the reasons is because of the reckless spending of the Biden administration, all due to climate cultist beliefs that they have got to regulate and spend hard-earned tax dollars in order to control the climate. The Biden administration's cumulative new regulatory costs imposed surpass all of his predecessors. According to analysis of the administration's own published cost estimates, as of May 17, 2024, the administration had already imposed $1.6 trillion in new regulatory costs. That $1.6 trillion is almost the entire budget for 1 year for the federal government. These costs are several times higher than the costs imposed during the entire 8 years of the Obama administration, and they are over $1.7 trillion greater than those imposed during the Trump administration. As of May 2024, the EPA had on its own imposed $1.3 trillion of the Biden administration's total new regulatory cost, over 80%. An estimated $870 billion of these costs are attributable to the EPA's light and medium duty EV rule. But even the remaining $400+ billion in new costs are substantially equivalent to all new regulatory costs imposed through the Obama administration. Mr. Regan, you unveiled a new rule this year, a climate regulation. The rule's designed to ensure that the majority of new passenger cars and light trucks sold in the United States are all electric or hybrids by 2032. And that's approximately 8 years from now. This is an absurd regulation on tailpipe emissions limits imposed by the EPA. Inflation is so high right now, so high. Many Americans aren't able to even buy a new car right now. They're not able to buy a home. They can hardly afford their rent. I know many senior citizens in my district are having to choose between rent and be able to pay for their medications. This is absolutely unreal that this would be a rule imposed on Americans to the point where they would have, within 8 years, are they even going to be able to buy a car? Think about that. Think about hardworking families. Parents both working with their kids, they're just trying to get through life. And this rule that you have imposed is going to force them to, because of the tailpipe emissions, have to buy an electric vehicle. So I don't think many Americans are going to be able to do that. And it's going to drastically crush Americans who, by the way, pay your paycheck, pay my paycheck, pay for this federal government. It's outrageous. Right now, we have an EV euphoria is dead. Automakers are scaling back or delaying their electric vehicle plans. 7.6 of new cars and trucks sold are electric vehicles because nobody wants them. And then let's add on the reality of electric vehicles. Electric vehicles add 1,000 pounds or more per vehicle. That causes damage to roads, bridges, and parking garages. I want you all to imagine for just 1 minute a parking garage that has been built to hold the weight of combustion engine cars and trucks. And imagine a parking garage filled with electric vehicles. It cannot sustain that weight, and neither can many roads and bridges. Electric vehicles are too heavy. There's 2,000 pounds in 1 ton. The Delaware Bridge, for example, has a weight limit of 3 tons. So there's several EVs on the market right now that already exceed that limit for that bridge, for that one bridge. One electric vehicle exceeds the limit, the weight limit for that bridge. Tesla Model X, Audi e-tron, BMW, e-Hummer, and Rivian. Some of these electric vehicles exceed 8,000-pound limits on some of these roads. Because of the rules that you are imposing, this is going to crush Americans' ability to even be able to afford a car and send us back into the time before people could afford cars, and I can't even imagine that. In Georgia alone, we had the electric vehicle car Rivian. They're now delaying construction of a $5 billion factory in Georgia. This is a complete catastrophe, Mr. Reagan. It's a complete catastrophe. And it needs to be undone. The EPA regulations are unsustainable for Americans. And believe me, Republicans want clean air and water too. But the climate cult has got to end. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.